It's taken 40 since I've been watching. The house, as far as I'm aware, was built sometime in the 1940s. The man of the house went on to die in Korea. The woman, eventually from cancer. A lack of a clear air and a condemnation from the city due to some sort of mold left it in limbo. And it has sat in that tiny, dying lot sandwiched between two unhappy homes ever since. That's the story that passed around the neighborhood when I was a kid. You'd think, at first glance, it must radiate some kind of poison antithetical to life, owing to it the forever dead yard and rotted out tree barely holding up its melting tire swing. It's only upon further investigation that you notice all sorts of life. Ant beds, spider webs, graffiti, and of course the people that become drawn to its decayed old door. They wander in, whether out of curiosity or some other mental sickness, and then, once that front door shuts, they're as good as dead. I know this to be true. It happened to my older brother. Back when I was in middle school and he was just entering high school, something changed about him when he started there. He'd always been such a fun, cheerful person, intelligent and almost wise for his age, until his dreams started. He would detail to me these vivid, awful dreams with sparse, confusing details. A pink woman, a red light, a stream of frothing, dull water. None of it made sense to me, and frankly, as a kid, I didn't necessarily care much. I know that he started to stop outside that abandoned house and stare at it after school. I know that my parents had him seeing a psychiatrist after a while. And I know that I saw him walk into that house the same day that he disappeared forever. My family was crushed. I don't think we ever really recovered from it. Never really picked up the pieces. We weren't really a family anymore. It was just me, Mom, and Dad. A year after he went away, I started high school. From then on, I passed that house twice every day. One day, I saw a flash of something from the corner of my eye. Something inside the window of the house, and I turned to look. There was a woman staring at me through the window. She was red in the face and seemed fairly tall, bony. She had to stoop her shoulders and neck to smile at me with a wide, gummy grin. Her reddish hand waved, and that wave made something tug at my core, telling me, back off. I timidly waved back and ran home. My mom asked me about the slick sweat coating my forehead. I didn't respond. Instead, I thought back to my brother. A pink woman, he had said. I wasn't sure if it was related. I had never dreamed about her, but I sure did see her regularly after that. Every day I would feel that same fear. After the last day of classes before winter break, I walked home alone, as usual. When I passed the house, though, something was different. The woman was gone. She wasn't always there anyway, but something else was. I could only see it because of the seasonal change in afternoon light. Now that it was darker at this hour, I could make out the blood-red light that streamed through the edges of the front door. It caused a freezing jolt in my step. I turned towards it and felt the warmth that came from inside, reaching out to me from across the dusty yard. "A red light," he had said. I had to know. My feet planted themselves forward, one after the other. Left, right, left, right. Stop. I was close then. I knew it because I looked down, surprised by the bravery of my legs, if none of the rest of me. I could see the crimson light glimmering upon them. And I took another step. Then I heard it, the sound of rushing water. It sounded like there was a river on the other side of the door pressing against it, the walls and floorboards straining to contain it. It reeked something acidic, like there was a storm brewing, lightning about to strike. A stream of frothing water. An electric snap erupted into my core and made my body swivel away and run all the way back home without looking. I avoided that place like the plague after that, though I never came too close. I couldn't help but watch it on occasion, just long enough to see if anything would happen. Over that time, I saw a few more kids go in, and none of them ever came back. We even had a school assembly about it, about the tragedy of the 5 missing children, about the value of sticking together, finding friends, never being alone outside. I didn't really listen. I didn't need friends, I thought. I could walk alone outside. I was fine. During my sophomore year, one more kid went in, egged on by his group of friends. So much for sticking together. He didn't come back either. After that, my growing curiosity about the house had reached a tipping point. It's hard to explain why I felt exactly the way I did, but I wanted to know what was in there. What happened to the other kids? What had happened to my brother? Maybe it was the woman inviting me in with that odd smile and her mechanical wave. Something about her felt different than before. Warm, comforting. Maybe it was a feeling I had growing in the back of my mind for a while and I just hadn't acknowledged it. But despite logic screaming at me, I felt like I needed to go in there. I approached the door after school one day and touched the knob. It felt oddly hot and nearly as if it were pulsing in my grip. So I twisted it. It opened with a long, grinding creak as though it could collapse with too hard a glance. The first thing that hit me was the color. The front room was completely coated in a slick, deep red tint. The room was long, narrow, empty save for a few doors. The walls, ceiling, and floor looked kind of like they were covered in globs of wet, dripping paint. And it all smelled strongly with a metal, bloody tinge. I pinched my nose and stepped in. The floor bounced under my feet. It was soft, fleshy. I walked far enough to reach the first door on the left. I turned its red, gooey knob, gore slipping between my fingers. This was the room through the window. It was a decaying wooden living room. The woman was waving out of the window, her back turned to me. I could see a dusty leather couch situated past her along the wall, and opposite that was an old tube television waiting to be used. It reminded me of my grandparents and their home, the happy days of visiting them, of movies and cookies and the love that only family could give. I looked between the couch and the television, noticing the brown and red carpet inlaid with intricate, flowery patterns. It looked soft. There was a fold in the center of the carpet. It was huge, and something was under it. Could it be him? My eyes followed the lump to the edge of the carpet where I finally noticed it. A long, wet, pink tube protruded from the underside of the carpet towards an open door opposite to the window to my right. It had the same width as the woman, and it snaked across the floor, leaving a mucousy slime around it. The tube, coming from the other end of the carpet, met the woman at her feet, or at least where feet should have been. The bottom of the tube entered the bottom of her long skirt, disappearing into her lower half. I couldn't make out any sort of legs or feet at all. The visible portion of the tube was flexing like some giant muscle working to keep her body upright. An uncontrolled gasp escaped my lips. She, or it, turned to face the sound. It looked at me with the same smiling expression. That electric feeling coursed through my body. Then, without warning, the entire body convulsed and dropped to the ground, sweeping itself toward me. Before I could react, it slammed into my legs. I felt its heavy, warm, slimy mass, and I crumpled into it. I desperately pulled myself away from the convulsing tube, my nails dragging against the wood. As I turned back toward it, I saw the open door that it had come from suddenly open wide, like a fleshy, organic aperture. And a dark fluid began to pour out, reaching across the entire space in an instant, reaching a foot deep. I gasped in the bubbling liquid, accidentally swallowing some of it. It tasted like rancid puke. The giant tongue whipped forwards at me again, striking my right arm, snapping my elbow backwards and breaking the skin instantly. I shouted out in pain and struggled to stand up in the torrent. I could see blood, my own, splattered on the side of the fake woman. The entire mass snaked backward into the giant pulsing hole in the wall. It disappeared into the darkness, and the hole snapped shut. I stood up and stomped through the fluid toward the door to the front room. As I crossed the threshold, I could hear a loud, deep groan vibrating throughout both rooms. The aperture opened again, and the tongue shot out straight towards me. I slammed the door shut, catching the tube in its edge, cutting its skin, causing it to profusely leak dark blood. Wading down the hall in an instant, I made it to the decrepit front door and attempted to twist the handle. It wouldn't budge. I began to slam all my weight through my shoulder into it, bending and cracking it each time. The bleeding, cracked tongue was slithering towards me, its pinkish flesh visible through the muddy vomit. As I felt its slimy point brush my ankle, I thrust my shoulder forward in a last-ditch effort, and the door crushed outwards, splintering into hundreds of shards. Many embedded themselves in my skin as I landed hard on the dusty pathway outside. The house's fluids flooded into the yard, dispersing, fading into the dirt. I stood on my bleeding legs, gripped my shattered elbow, and limped away from the house. Although it's been almost a year since then, the scars still remain. A gash on my right arm, a few marks where large splinters had broken my skin. I've urged others not to enter there again, not after what I've seen, and not after the others. But it doesn't work. I still see kids, adults, people of all types enter it. I still watch from a distance. Sometimes it's the kids you'd expect. Sometimes not. Don't enter that house. It's not worth what you'll find. Not worth what you'll walk away with, if you walk away at all. And it's not worth what you'll leave behind.